42.
Start the recording.
Yep. All right, and then for attendance, I'll just go down the list. Alexandra Dukeman.
Here.
Matt Crabtree.
Here.
Melinda Ellswick.
Here.
I know Lauren Cooper is absent this evening. Cash Parker. I am here. Ken Chu.
Here.
Okay. And then for staff, it's Eric Sampson and Brian Isom with the planning department.
Okay. Sorry, I'm still getting the agenda up. This public forum next.
Approval of minutes.
Approval of minutes. So is there any discussion on the minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve those?
Motion to approve.
There's been a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I will second.
Seconded by Matt Crabtree. We have most people virtual tonight, so I don't know if we should do a voice vote, or do you want to just call a roll on it, Eric?
I can just call it.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, Alex.
Aye.
Matt.
Aye.
Linda.
Abstain.
Okay. Cash.
Aye.
Ken.
Aye.
Okay. All good.
All right, that motion carries. The minutes are approved. Public forum is next, right?
Yep.
Okay. I don't see anyone from the public here in the room. I don't see anyone on the virtual meeting, on the Teams meeting. Is that right, Eric?
You are correct.
Okay. That moves us to our first agenda item, which I am still getting in front of me. Is that the plaque?
Yep.
Okay. I'll turn that over to you, Eric.
Okay, so yeah, it's the review proof of concept plaque from Harmonic Media. And so they did have a slowdown over the holidays. So this just came in last week when I was out of the country. But it is in, and unfortunately, you know, since most of you are online and can't see this very well, Matt did swing by earlier this afternoon and took a look at it. But Cash and Alex, you can look at it. I think they did a really excellent job on that.
Yeah, it looks good to me. Matt, I guess I'll call on you if you don't mind me picking on you to offer your
nice
expertise.
Sure. Yeah. So I stopped by earlier today to take a look at the prototype, or I guess not really the prototype at this point. It'd be the first article, and it looks great. It's considerably lighter, and the quality is fantastic. I like how they beveled the holes, and they included screws with it also. So there will probably be different types of screws depending upon the mounting surface, if it's brick or wood or whatnot. The screws that they included in there were some sort of fine thread machine screws. So those probably won't be used in every application, but the beveling of the mounting holes was a very nice touch and could accommodate really any type of wood or coarse head screw. So I have up on the screen here a picture that I took comparing the two, the prototype versus the first article here. And they're very close. They're exactly, dimensions are perfect. I did not see anything that was wrong.
So on the left is the one that you created, correct?
Ah, see? The one on the right was the one that I created.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, the one on the left is the one with the beveled screw holes.
Yeah.
A nice touch.
Yeah, it is actually a really nice touch. But yeah, the one on the right is my prototype. It's hard to tell dimensionality, of course, because there's a significant thickness difference, and I think a difference in weight of at least about 75%, I think, at least, maybe 60%. I don't know Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say that's accurate.
Yeah, so it's much lighter weight material that they used, which is good. Of course, I used what was only what I could get my hands on at that time that was reasonably cost effective, and that was also, kind of surplus material when I made my prototype. So it was a very dense material that I used. So they did a good job on it. They did a good job.
Yeah, it looks really good in person. Seems like it came out nicely, so it's a win. And I can't remember, Eric, what company did we end up going with to source this from?
This was Harmonic Media, so the Inglewood company.
Inglewood Company, so it's, yeah, local too. That's cool.
Yeah.
Neat. So what do we need to do from here? Do you need us to pass a motion to buy a run of these?
So about that, I did bring that up after our discussion in December with Brian and Brad. And they said that since we don't have any applicants yet, we're going to hold off on purchasing any of them.
It's fair.
Before we, put the cart in front of the horse, as it were.
Well, we at least have one.
We have one.
We
Yeah.
have enough for one applicant.
And so on that point, that makes perfect sense. On that point, when we're ready, like if 5 applicants showed up and their applications were, recommended for approval and approved by council and we needed to order some. Now that this company has done the first run, we can just order them anytime, right?
Yep.
That's how that works.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
And you do get a discount if you go in 5 or 10 in bulk.
Yeah.
And I didn't do this one whenever I was working on pricing. I think Matt did. Matt, I think you mentioned this. I know that at least in other cities that I've worked in, some people want it to mount on their wall. Some people want to mount it to like a piece of aluminum on a pipe, not screwed into the wall because their wall is historic. So
Sure.
At least one of the companies gave you the option. So you can, when you order it, you can order it based on the mounting preference of the applicant. So
Oh, that's
another
interesting.
one we should wait.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm sure Harmonic could probably, I mean, we'd have to ask them on that. I'm sure they can accommodate, but that is a really good point. For instance, when they mounted the plaque for the National Historic Register and the Charles Deaton Bank, they chose to mount that inside and on what would be considered kind of a, non-historic wall, I guess, to not cause any damage. And of course, I don't know if they'd be able to mount it to a curved surface anyway. So, but that's a really good point. With that is to offer, mounting options, I guess, or to check on that.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
yeah, on that note, are there any other comments or questions before we move off this topic?
I do. Regarding the funding and budgeting, I know that was one of the conversations that we had, at our last meeting, and utilizing funding that had not been used in the preceding year. How does that look? Did we lose access to that funding, or is there anything that's available for that still for our commission?
As far as I know, it doesn't roll over into this year's budget. I don't know exactly where those dollars go. I'd have to check with finance. But yeah, I think we start fresh with a brand new budget of, what is it, $3,000?
Yeah, I think it was in there.
$3,000.
Okay. I mean, it would have been nice, I understand the consideration and the concern of ordering too many of these ahead of time without applicants. But yeah, I guess it would have been nice to utilize that funding, I guess, for this. So I assume that that's not what we're doing now.
It is not, no.
Okay. Alrighty.
Anything else?
Nope.
Great. Thanks for coming down to look at it today, Matt.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. All right. Moving on to item number 5, the materials for the CLG study session with City Council. Before we get into the materials, is the date confirmed for the study session?
Yes, I believe we're on for February 10th.
Okay.
It's Monday evening. Not sure of exactly the time that we'll be going. Their study sessions start at 6. So we'll need to wait and see where we are on that agenda for the exact time, but we are good to go. And I did also reach out to Lindsay Flewelling with SHPO, and she will be able to attend that evening as well to answer questions that we could not if they happen to arise. So good on that. I did provide you all of the materials that we're planning to provide to council prior to the study session. I know we kind of had gone through the PowerPoint back in November. And then does anybody have any comments, questions, corrections that you see in any of the materials?
I guess the only question I had was about including that flyer that Lindsay had shared with us.
Oh, yes, that was not included in the attachments, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that that flyer is just super useful because it outlines the tax credits available.
That's right. That's a good point. And yeah, I still have that document, so that could be easy to include as an attachment.
Because
Great.
what we're looking at here, I mean, in addition to the presentation that you and I will use, Eric, these are the materials that'll be in the study session packet, right?
Yep. And so basically we included kind of the CLG overview, an example of a local government agreement. I know we had to discuss providing that to council so they can have a better idea what that would look like. We have the brand new directory for CLG cities and counties throughout Colorado. And then we have an example resolution ordinance. And then just so they're aware, and so we are all aware of what it would be required for the annual report that goes to SHPO, provided that we do become CLG.
Yeah, I looked at it earlier and I'm looking again now. It looks like a pretty comprehensive set of materials for the packet. It looks good to me.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
So I can't remember our conversation previously, but will Lindsay Flewelling and I'm sorry if I missed that. Is she going to be present for the presentation also?
Yep, she will be in attendance.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Thanks. I think that'd be fantastic to have that because I would imagine, I kind of play devil's advocate of what I would ask questions on with this, and there's a few points that I'm sure there's going to be questions. It'd be nice to have somebody, very knowledgeable on the topic there to help us.
Yep, absolutely. I had confirmed with her earlier this week that she would be able to attend, so, and she's a go. So that's awesome.
So you said starts at 6 and we won't know exactly where we're at on the agenda. Do you anticipate we'll get the usual like 15-ish minutes or less for this item?
I'm guessing we'll probably be with about 10 minutes for presentation, probably 15 to 20 for questions.
Are these the current copies of the slides that we discussed, was it 2 months ago?
I think so.
So I thought we had more check marks on that responsibilities slide, and I thought we had adopt a resolution to become a CLG prior as the first step on the next step slide.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, so I thought we discussed that you had to adopt a resolution before submitting the application.
Let's see.
And Cash, they have a mayor-manager meeting every week, and on that agenda, we're listed for 15 minutes for presentation, and there's no time limit on questions from council.
Okay.
Wait, just gonna go back and double check.
I know, I wish Lauren was here because I feel like she's the one that made most of these comments.
Yeah, I do. I didn't catch that, but I do think we should put adopt a resolution first on that slide.
Okay.
Because I think that probably legally has to happen first before an application can be submitted. And I do remember that discussion now that you bring it up. So, but that's an easy, just swap those two elements out.
Yeah, and then on the responsibilities slide,
Hold on just a second.
yeah, let me know when you're ready, because I thought we discussed our check marks on this one.
This one?
Yeah, that slide, because I remember Lindsay saying that she, for her job, has to go to, I think, to a SHPO approved educational / training event annually.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we discussed that providing opportunities for public participation was that they could join us in our meeting.
Yeah, I do think that's accurate. I think you can check off, you can put those, you can move those up and put check marks by those two. Provide opportunities for public participation, and one commission member must attend a SHPO-approved training event.
Okay, we'll just double check on my desktop here, just in case I saved it in a weird spot. Okay, oh, so, all right, so run those changes by me.
So the provide opportunities for public participation in local preservation efforts, and at least one commission, I think that should say commission member, commissioner. Those can both be moved up and put check marks by those.
PowerPoint's not very fun without a mouse.
And then I know you've got the example of the annual report in the packet materials. I know we discussed the system for survey and inventory of historic properties. You know, I anticipate there could be questions about what does that entail and how much does it cost. And I think we had discussed with Lindsay that it's pretty basic and it's not specific, and it's not a situation where a survey has to be done annually or on any fixed timetable, is my recollection of that discussion. I don't know that anything else needs to be said on that slide, but I could see council asking a question about that.
Well, and that it being accepted as a CLG city gives you access to funding to pay for all those surveys. So
That's a good point. Is that on the benefits slide? I guess what I would suggest, that's a good point, Ryan.
Saved in a specific folder.
Yeah, it's in the historic preservation. And then it's, here, I have it up. CLG, the subfolder.
Under current planning.
No, so it's boards and then historic preservation. And then the CLG.
Can you put that benefits slide on
Yeah.
the next one up, I guess? Oh, no, yeah, there you go.
Okay.
I just think, mostly so that I remember it, the point that Brian just made, I think, so under access to CLG and NPS grants, whether it's there or the state historical fund grants, but I think it's probably this first bullet point, maybe put a parenthetical that says, including potentially grants to cover costs of surveys. The funding's fine too.
I think I found the presentation that we edited.
Oh, you did?
Yes, in a different folder.
Oh.
So it has benefits, access to CLG and MPS grants without any fund matching requirements, eligibility for state historic preservation tax credit and state historical fund grants. But on the previous pages where you have the differences, what was the previous page? Yeah, establish and enforce local preservation ordinance, establish and maintain a historic preservation commission. And then underneath that one was provide opportunities for public participation in local preservation efforts. And then at least one commissioner attending approved educational events. And then the two non-check marks are maintain a system for survey and inventory of historic property with a sub-bullet that says CLG status opens up more grant opportunities, and then submit an annual report to SHPO. And this one also had your next steps, had adopt a resolution to become a CLG first. And it was saved at 6:58 the night of our last meetings, or the meeting in November.
Okay, so we
thinking
can
this is
just, pull-
probably
yeah,
the
we
one.
can put that one in.
Okay.
Where was that at?
It's not in your CLG folder, it's just further down on that first menu.
Oh, the CLG,
CLG City Council Presentation 11.24.
okay.
Saved at 6:58 PM. You might open that one up.
Yep,
I think
that's
that's the one that we edited. I should close out. There you go.
Ah, here we go. So okay, so these are the other slides
Okay.
that we had edited. So that was
All right.
that.
Let's use that one then.
Okay. We'll be sure to do that one instead without
Okay.
any matching requirements. Perfect, good. I'm glad you remembered that.
Yeah, good catch.
And then we did the adopt resolution. Okay, cool.
Okay, good. All right, well, if we use that one, I think we're good to go.
I'm gonna save as this.
Save it as like final or something. There you go.
Okay. Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, great. And Eric, even if it's that Monday, that day, if you and I wanna talk beforehand, I'm happy to sit down for a few minutes and chat about it.
Sure,
Yeah,
absolutely. If you wanna just swing in a little
Yeah.
earlier, because I'll just stay here.
perfect,
So-
yeah, easy enough,
You might get just a Teams meeting with the two of you and Lindsay.
yeah. That'd
Oh,
be
yeah.
great.
How she wants to
That's a good
Yeah.
idea.
coordinate the
That's a good
presentation.
idea. That's a good idea, and I don't have anything right now on my calendar that day, so if you want to send around an invite for whatever time's convenient before 6 PM for a Teams meeting, that's perfect.
Okay,
Do you mind doing that?
no, not at all.
All right, any other comments or questions or discussion before we wrap up that item?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Excuse me. I had the impression that, I mean, our first or purpose for doing this was to ask permission from council to apply to be a CLG.
It is, but they have to pass a resolution to do that.
They have to pass the resolution first before we can apply.
Correct.
Yep,
So
This is kind of a
saying-
fool's errand, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this is kind of saying, do you want us to even start preparing all of this information rather than preparing all of the information and then getting to council and then
Well,
getting approved or denied? I think this is kind of saying, hey, are you okay if we go through with this?
Yep.
And then they know it's coming.
I mean, my ask of them will be and would be, unless anyone disagrees, that they should consider and adopt a resolution, because we're already doing, the city of Inglewood is already doing 75 to 85% of the things necessary to be a CLG, depending on how you categorize those things. And there's no additional cost or burden, and there's no downside to becoming a CLG, but what we're losing out on by not being one is all of the benefits that it opens up by being a CLG. So, you know, I'm not on the city council, so I can't vote on it, but I would hope at the end of the presentation that they would be moving in that direction. I mean, yeah, that is the plan, is to ask them to do that, because they have to do that. We can't apply to be a CLG without the elected officials on the city councils giving authority for the city to do that.
Would it be a good idea to have a resolution, a draft resolution ready to hand to them?
There is one in here.
and that would need to go to an actual council.
Yeah, they couldn't vote on it that night to approve.
No, but
So we have a draft in there, but not like completely fleshed out
the
and written
draft.
by our city attorneys.
The draft that's in here, that's on, there's not page numbers in here, it's toward the end, it's before the certified local government annual report example. I mean, the resolution is simple. it really needs the city of Inglewood filled into a few blanks for it to be ready for the council to vote on. So if they're agreeable to the idea, it's not gonna take much for I assume the city attorney's office writes ordinances and resolutions and stuff for them to draft those for them to pass. It's gonna take 5 minutes of work for the city attorney's office to put that together.
But yeah, it would need to go onto a regular council agenda.
Right, which is, it has to have like, what, at least a week's notice, and then it has to have a first reading and a second reading and stuff like that.
Resolutions, I think, are just one reading.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
I believe ordinances are 2. Public hearings with ordinances are 2 readings and a public hearing. So I think this one might be just 1. I'll double check with the attorney's office, but I'm pretty sure resolutions are 1.
That means they could vote on it that night.
Not the night that you all meet with him, but
then, like,
whenever
when
we
it's
have
actually
it,
at a
whenever we
meeting.
put it on an agenda, yeah, they could vote that night and you would
Okay.
know. We would know what to do next.
Right, because someone on the council could say, I want to propose this ordinance and I want to vote on it at the next regular meeting is what needs to happen for that to take place, right?
Yeah, sometimes what they'll generally do is at a work session or study session, you'll get kind of a consensus
Yeah.
on which direction it's going. You may have somebody that says, bring it back to next Monday. Or they might say, bring it back to us in a month or 2, or they may not give us direction on when to bring it back, and we'll schedule it on the next open agenda.
Do we just have to get a majority to agree to it?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
given that this council has always been hostile to the idea of historic preservation, I can see them saying, oh, no, we'll think about it, and then unless we keep nagging, they'll never do anything.
Yeah, I mean, that may be the situation. Certainly, Eric and I will try our best to convince them to do something. So we'll see what we can do. I mean, this is, as we discussed before, I think the rationale for bringing this back to council was twofold. One, it's a different composition of folks on council than the last time this idea was presented. 2, the city, including with the Title 16 revisions to the code, has done some different things, namely, enacting a historic preservation ordinance that actually gives the power to this commission to recommend preservation and the council to approve, preservation or designation, I should say, of historic landmarks. So we actually have an ordinance that is CLG compliant. So some things have changed because I think the ordinance as it existed before the Code Next project and all the revisions passed, I don't think that would have met the requirements to be a CLG because we had no power to actually designate landmarks, and so that changed with the revisions to that ordinance. So the bulk of the work, in my view, the harder thing or the more complicated thing, maybe is the way of putting it, was passing the revisions to the ordinance to actually give this commission and ultimately the council power to recognize and designate historic landmarks. And so since we've gone through that brain damage, of which there was much over the 2 years of getting through those revisions to the code and then getting the council successfully to adopt that ordinance, this is the logical next step, and actually an easier step than what's been done to this point. It requires less action and there's less sort of controversy, I think, if we present this correctly. So, because again, we have an ordinance that actually has power behind it now, and so we're meeting those CLG minimums most of the way with just a few other little steps here, starting with council passing this resolution. So hopefully they see it that way because it's beneficial to the city, but it also makes designation of landmarks more beneficial to owners because it gives them access to tax credits and grants and all that they otherwise wouldn't have. So it should be seen as a win all around, I hope.
As you said before, and do stress with them, there's no downside to
None.
being a CLG.
None. And, you know, we included it up front on, Eric did a nice job putting it together, the little map of CLGs in Colorado. But now we also have the complete list, the directory that's included in this packet that shows the diversity of communities around the state, geographically, politically, socioeconomically, that are CLGs. So it's not a partisan thing. It's not a geography thing. It's nothing like that. And so I think that's pretty evident from these materials that it's, and it's common too. It's a number. It's 67 in Colorado and 2,100 nationwide. So I think that's why we landed on putting that up front in the presentation, to see this is common, and it happens in a lot of different places around the state, including our neighbors. I mean, so I think we discussed this at the last meeting. It's essentially every neighboring municipality of Inglewood. It's Littleton, Denver, both are, I know. Aurora is, if you consider that. It's not a bordering neighbor, but a close neighbor.
Yeah.
So it's everyone around us, and so hopefully it seems like a no-brainer, because it is. But yeah, obviously Eric and I will be there, and Brian, I assume you have to attend that meeting anyway, just as part of your normal duties and responsibilities. But I certainly invite everyone else that can make it, if you'd like to join and be there at the meeting to see what happens, if nothing else.
Yeah, I'd like to see what happens.
Yeah. And if it goes wrong, it's all Eric's fault. That's
Yep.
why I don't
I'll take
it. So yeah, I'm optimistic. I'm cautiously optimistic. The fact, and the reason I'm cautiously optimistic is the fact that we got the ordinance, the historic preservation ordinance, the revisions to it passed with not a ton of controversy, a little bit of discussion around the threshold for percentage of properties in a district to be designated, and that went from 50 to 75 to 2/3, I think is where it landed after the back and forth. But there was really no other discussion about the rest of the ordinance. The fact that we got that passed through with relatively little difficulty gives me some optimism that this council will be receptive to adopting this resolution and letting us move forward in this process. And, you know, if it's a we'll think about it answer, then we can discuss in this commission about getting back in front of them and back on their agenda at some point again this year to keep reminding them. So, anything else, Belinda, any other thoughts?
No, fingers crossed. Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Anyone else before we leave this?
If they respond with a "we'll think about it," do they usually like provide an indication as to why they need to think about it?
They'll usually provide staff with some sort of directive
Okay.
if there's more information that they would like along those lines.
I mean, I'll ask him, what else do you need to know? I'm not
Okay.
shy.
Okay.
I don't mind. Yeah, so yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I think, like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic. So, thank
Just
you.
think of it as litigating in a hostile courtroom.
Yeah, exactly. I'm no stranger to that. So, thanks, Eric, for putting that together and being willing to do this. And Brian and Eric, thank you both for getting this teed up, because I know it takes a kind of a run up of a few months to get this all lined out, to get on their agenda and get the materials in the packet and all of that. So thank you for doing that. Okay. That leads us to item 6, staff's choice, Eric or Brian.
So next month is election of officers. And I think this is your second year as chair. So I think we will need to appoint a new chair and vice chair at next meeting. So just a heads up on that. And that was really all I had.
Don't all of you clamor at once to be chair of this commission? Yeah, sounds good. And then I guess this leads us, Brian, did you have anything? Sorry, I didn't want to.
We have an open house next Wednesday. the long-range planning team, John, is working on an update to our comprehensive plan. And we have an open house next Wednesday. It would normally be Tuesday, but the holiday pushes all of our meetings back a day. So next Wednesday night downstairs in the community room from 5 p.m. till 7 p.m.
Next Wednesday, 5 to 7.
Yep.
Okay, great. Anything else from you guys for staff's choice?
No, sir.
Okay. Commissioner's choice, I don't have anything other than, I guess, one question for staff, which is, do we have one vacancy on this commission right now? Is that right? I have to count. I think we do.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, and I know, isn't the beginning of the year, around the beginning of the year, one of the time frames when they do the appointments to boards and commissions?
They're doing interviews currently.
Okay. Okay, so do we think
We think we'll have somebody.
by next month?
Yep,
Okay,
we think so.
perfect.
I can't remember when they're officially appointed, if it's before the February meeting or if it would be March, but
Do not know right off the top of my head.
yeah, I don't either.
That's all I had for Commissioner's choice, and that was my only question. Alex, since you're here, I'll look to you next.
Will you just send an email when you know where we're at on the agenda?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, that would be good
For,
to know.
yeah, what time for the study session?
Do they usually like stick pretty close to what like the schedule is, more or less?
A lot of times, yes.
Okay.
We did have a meeting where Eric and I were on an agenda and an item got bumped, and Eric and I were both upstairs watching the meeting as it happened, and we had to run downstairs to get in.
Oh, yeah. that's
So it
right.
does get bumped.
And,
Or
Okay.
and I'm
generally it doesn't happen very often. but
Yeah,
it
I'm
does
happy
happen.
to be here at 6 until we go. I can work on other stuff and do other things until we're ready. In the off chance they get to us early or something, I don't mind being here from 6 o'clock onward. I'll just plan on that. It's not a big deal.
Perfect.
Anything else?
No, that was my only question.
Great.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Melinda, anything for Commissioner's choice?
No, nothing.
Matt?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. And I just wanted to kind of echo Cash's statements. Thanks to Eric and Brian for your hard work with getting this information together. Hopefully we're successful in convincing council to at least look a little bit deeper into the CLG process. So also, there will be a historic lecture by the Historic Englewood this month. I'm going to share my screen. I think you'll get a kick out of the title. David Gilbert will be presenting this, and it's the history of the 1913 flood. One man dead, another on fire, and free pie for all. Apparently that all ties together somehow in the lecture. Should prove to be very interesting. 1913 flood was obviously, pretty severe for Englewood. Most of the floods, even afterwards were severe, but 1913 was specifically bad. That will be at 2:30 p.m. in the Englewood Public Library. And then there'll be an evening presentation at 6:30 p.m. at the Mayflower Congregational Church at 3001 South Acoma Street. Hope you can make it. And I think this will be a really good lecture.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, every lecture David Gilbert has done has been fascinating.
Yeah.
So.
And thanks again, Matt, for all your work on the plaque. Cool to see that come to fruition. So hopefully we have somebody to give one to at some point soon.
Yeah.
Anything else from you, Matt?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Ken?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Okay. That brings us to the end of the agenda entirely, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, it's been so moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, second from Matt Crabtree. We will be adjourned at 7:22 p.m. Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
Thank you, everyone. We will see some of you in February 10th. and then probably in the meeting the next week. So
Great.
stay warm, my friends.
Oh, is that the moon?
It is the moon.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
It's a nice view.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Everybody,
Thanks.
bye.
All right, thank
It was-
you.
Today was pretty warm.